1.
Where was he born?
In Brabant, in the Netherlands.
2.
What was his job?
He worked as an art dealer.
3.
Why was he dismissed?
Because he'd had an argument with customers.
4.
Why did he try to commit suicide?
Because he'd fallen in love with his cousin and she'd rejected him.
5.
Which artists did he meet?
Degas, Pissarro, Seurat, Toulouse-Lautrec, Monet and Renoir.
6.
What was he doing when he met them?
He was studying art.
7.
Who came to live with him?
Gauguin.
8.
Where did they first meet?
In Paris.
9.
What was he carrying?
A razor blade.
10.
Why did he cut off part of his ear?
Because he'd been drinking and he'd had an argument with Gauguin.
11.
Which paintings were completed there?
Starry Night, Irises and Self-Portrait without a beard.
12.
What was he doing when he shot himself?
He was painting outside.
13.
Why did he shoot himself?
Because he was depressed.
14.
Where was he buried?
In Auvers.
15.
Why didn't he have any money?
Because he'd sold only one of his paintings.
Smash! Clumsy Visitor Destroys Priceless Vases by Tom Ball. A clumsy visitor to a British museum has destroyed a set of priceless 300-year-old Chinese vases after slipping on the stairs. The 3 vases, which were produced during the Qing dynasty in the 17th century, had stood on a windowsill at the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge for 40 years. Last Thursday, they were smashed into 1 million pieces. The vases, which had been donated in 1948, were the museum's best-known pieces. The Fitzwilliam decided not to identify the man who had caused the disaster. It was a most unfortunate and regrettable accident, Museum Director Duncan Robinson said, but we are glad that the visitor wasn't seriously injured. The photograph of the accident was taken by another visitor, Steve Baxter. We watched the man fall as if in slow motion. He was flying through the air. The vases exploded as though they'd been hit by a bomb. The man was sitting there, stunned, in the middle of a pile of porcelain when the staff arrived. The museum declined to say what the vases were worth.
It's 7:45 and you're listening to the Today programme. The man who broke Chinese vases worth £100,000 when he fell downstairs at a museum has been named by a daily newspaper. He's Nick Flynn and he's with us now. Are you all right, Mr. Flynn? You didn't hurt yourself falling downstairs, did you?
I'm on the mend, which is more than I can say for the vases.
Too true. How did it happen?
I was coming down the stairs, looking at the pictures, and I slipped. The stairs are very shiny, and it had been raining, so I guess my shoes were a bit wet. And I just went head over heels.
It must have been a strange feeling lying in the middle of all that priceless porcelain.
I was surprised that these incredibly valuable vases were left just standing on a windowsill. I'd seen them lots of times before, but I hadn't really paid them any attention.
And I hear you've been banned from the museum, is that right?
Yes, I got a letter from the director of the museum asking me not to go back. It's a shame because I used to go twice a week, so now I've got to find somewhere else to go.
Well, thank you, Mr. Flynn, and good luck.
The first time I fell in love. Sarah.
The first time I fell in love was when I was 13. It was with a boy called Max. We were on a school trip, a geography trip, so a whole group of us were living together for a week. I'd never really noticed this boy before, because we used to go around with different people, but I suddenly started looking at him, and I remember thinking, you're nice. and I couldn't understand why I hadn't looked at him before. He was very quiet, and he had dark eyes that seemed to see everything, and he made me go all weak at the knees. We kind of started going out. When we held hands, it was electric, and the first time we kissed, I'd never felt anything like it in my life. Wow! I don't think he felt the same passion as me. He was very cool about everything. It only lasted a few months. Then he went back to his friends, and I went back to mine.
Tommy.
Well, I fell in love with a girl called Emma, but it didn't last very long.
How long did it last?
Well, about 2 weeks. It all ended last Friday.
Oh dear. What happened last Friday?
I decided that I'd had enough of being in love. I didn't like the feeling.
Was Emma upset?
Not really. She didn't know anything about it.
What?
No, I hadn't told her that I was in love with her, so she didn't know that it had ended.
Was it so bad?
Oh, yes. I couldn't sleep. I used to get this funny feeling here in my tummy when I saw her coming, and my heart went bang, bang, bang. It was horrible.
So how did you manage to stop loving her?
Well, I'm only 9, and I figured that I'm too young to only love one person for the rest of my life.
Fair enough. I'm glad you didn't hurt her feelings.
I'm glad it's all over.
James.
Well, I've only been in love once in my life, and that was when I was 22. I'd had other girlfriends, of course, but it was never more than that, just a girlfriend. And then I met this other girl, Ruth, and my whole life just turned upside down. I remember thinking at the time that I'd never felt anything like it. Nothing looked the same, felt the same. Life had never been so amazing, so colourful. I wanted to do everything, climb mountains, fly like a bird, stay up all night. Life was far too amazing to sleep. It's funny, I never used to care what I looked like, but suddenly I started to care. I wanted to look good for this girl in my life. I felt that I hadn't really lived until that moment, until I'd met her and fallen in love. Thank goodness she felt the same. We're still together, 30 years and 4 kids later. Amazing, huh?